wild, dangerous, and fast as lightning. The Pony Express lives on as an adored American legend. The Pony Express was a United States mail business spanning 1,800 miles across the country. It was rode entirely on horseback and could transport a letter across the country in 10 days or less. While this much of American history is familiar, would you know how long the pony operated? Do you know who created it? How much of the actual story do you know? Like many American children, I had some early history lessons about the Pony Express, but I felt that these didn't do the pony justice. My hometown of South Lake Tahoe is near many historic Pony Express stops. The trail was essentially in my backyard, so I decided to investigate this legend and see what I could discover. However, the more I researched the Pony Express, the more I realized how difficult it was to piece together a coherent history. Many of the stories were larger than life. To help explain the legend of the pony, I decided to seek out the man who knew the pony better than anyone else, a lifelong journalist and author of the book Orphans Preferred, The Twisted Truth and Lasting Legend of the Pony Express, Christopher Corbett.
If it doesn't sound boorish, I actually know a lot about the Pony Express. What I should tell you is that I think Americans in the 21st century are often amazed to find how brief the life of the Pony Express was. That it lasted a mere 78 weeks, more or less. Even people who think they know a great deal about American history always make these madcap and wild guesstimates of 20 years and 25 years.
How long did the Pony Express operate?
I think they operated about
I don't know, 25 years?
10 or 12 years. Wasn't very long.
maybe 75 to 100 years, I think.
50 years?
50 years? They only operated for a year and a half.
Year and a half?
Year and a half.
Really?
Okay.
Wow.
I knew it wasn't long. I didn't know it was that quick.
Yeah.
They also know nothing about the business.
The business was founded by three men named Alexander Majors, William Waddell, and William Russell. These men had already been in other shipping business ventures together when they decided to tackle fast mail.
The company was called the Central Overland California and Pikes Peak Express Company, which was too damn long to fit on anything, so they called it the Pony Express. But people in the West used to, because of the initials, people said the initials meant clean out of cash and poor pay, because they were notorious for not paying their bills. Many of those old boys lived well into the 20th century and were interviewed. They always talked about not getting paid. They always complained about not being paid. Or they did complain about the weather.
Once I spent 24 hours in the saddle, carrying the mail 120 miles to Fairfield with snow 2 or 3 feet deep and the mercury around zero. I could tell where the trail lay only by watching the tall weeds on either side, and often had to get off and lead my horse. There was no rider to go on at Fort Kearney, so I went on to Fairfield 20 miles away. The worst difficulty I ever had was with the storms. Sometimes that fierce wind and rain that came on that level country would slow us up a good deal. But it was the blizzards, though, that gave us the toughest treatment.
The thing that they set out to do, which was to move mail across the country in 10 days' time or less, they did that. The problem was, it was not a well-thought-out business. They had a lot of debt. You required stations every 10 or 12 miles. You required a lot of men. You required horses, good horses. You had to feed the horses. Some of that terrain is tough to cross. Financially, it was sort of doomed.
Poor business practices attributed to the downfall of the pony, but the final nail in the coffin was the completion of the transcontinental telegraph.
They didn't realize the transcontinental telegraph would go through. That went punched through in October of '61. The Creighton brothers, Creighton University, they did it in like 127 days or something, which amazed people. That put them out of business just like that, because why would you ride across the country on a horse when you could send a telegram? if Russell, Majors, and Waddell returned today, they would be astounded that we're even having this conversation about the Pony Express, because it was a tiny bit of this vast freight hauling empire that they had. I did a piece for the Wall Street Journal on the 150th anniversary of the Pony Express, and whoever I was talking to there said to me something about, this has to be the most famous failed business in American history. And I thought, that's probably true.
So how is it that the Pony Express is as familiar as it is in present day? Well, as Chris describes, it has to do with the storytellers who took the pony and made it their own.
The afterlife was colossal. In some respects, the story of the Pony Express only took off after they went out of business. At that point, it was like, woo! The people who were somehow tangentially associated with the pony, like Mark Twain, Wild Bill Hickok, John Ford, the filmmaker, among others, these people had a kind of a wildly unexpected collaborative impact on the memory of the pony. So the person who had the greatest impact on the whole thing, in some respects, would be the first great American celebrity, Buffalo Bill. Buffalo Bill put the Pony Express in his show in 1881, roughly. And it was a fixture of that show until the show went out of business in 1916, 17, somewhere about. Wherever he took that show, for decades in the United States and in Western Europe, he took the Pony Express with him. And when Buffalo Bill got done, people didn't remember that the Pony Express had been a 78-week disaster that hemorrhaged money. They thought it was, bigger than life. It's like a fishing story. The fish just got a little bigger every year. Pretty soon it was pretty good size.
The pony is used strategically to represent something not sewed in reality, but in the Old West. It is a historical event turned folk tale. So, the next time you see something related to the Pony Express, just remember that while the founders may have failed in their business venture, their creation lives on.